Okay, so it is recording.
Yep.
All right. Yuri, good afternoon.
Good
So
afternoon.
nice to meet you. Although this is the first time we meet, but we already met on LinkedIn before.
Yes.
And it's so nice to have you actually joining us today because we're going to talk about LinkedIn. So, Yuri Dekiba, you are the research director for CSO Insight,
Mm-hmm.
and you will be part of a great event that we also have at the Johns Hopkins
Mm-hmm.
University Career Business School for my CRM online class, where you will be part of a panel discussion as a guest speaker, along with two other guests, Tiffany Bova from Salesforce and Gerhard Weschwanger from Selling Power. And you offer a little bit of your time today to help us understand why LinkedIn is so important as a platform in social CRM, but also to help people build relationship and expand their network. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for joining us. I'm delighted to have you here speaking to us and to our students on your experience, and I would say your expertise, and providing us with some advice. So we will talk about three things, if you will. The first one is I'd like to learn a little bit more about your journey. You had a great journey in sales and technology sales, and I would like to learn more about how this became your journey and
Mm-hmm.
what did you learn from this journey. The second things I would like to touch on is, well, do you think LinkedIn is important as a platform to help people build their professional brand for their career, sales career, or in general marketing and sales career,
Mm-hmm.
or even in different disciplines? And last, if so, why do you think LinkedIn and how do you think LinkedIn can be used to connect with people and expand your network? So these are the three little things I would like to receive your feedback and suggestions. Okay.
Great. Sounds good.
So Yuri, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey, your personal journey, and how you had, how you had this journey happen to you, especially in sales and in technology sales.
Sure. So my introduction to sales was when I started out a long time ago in an inside sales role, where I started out as a sales associate at a company called Symantec, which still exists here in the California Bay Area. And when I first joined, I had a very traditional old style thought around what sales meant, car salesman or insurance sales. So I was not necessarily too excited about this opportunity. However, it came across, and when I joined, high tech sales in this particular instance was very different than my understanding of what sales was, and I learned quite a bit. But considering prior to this role, a couple of years prior, I actually had just completed a master's at Johns Hopkins University.
Mhm.
Um, my passion is always about learning, continual development opportunity, and also sharing what I learn. And so I was very interested in teaching, continually learning and teaching what I learn. And as I was in sales, I took on various roles, inside sales to field sales roles, and then became a product specialist focused on particular products to support the sales team. From there, I became more interested in how can I was already doing lunch and learns, for example, with my teams when I learned something new myself. And so I wanted to see if I could actually make that happen. And an opportunity came across where I was able to join the sales training team. And so that helped me combine my experience in sales and my interest in the learning and the sharing of what I learned, the training aspect. And so I joined sales training at Symantec. And from there, a couple of years passed, and I was also interested. I was working on a sales process project as it relates to implementing it, making sure it's also part of CRM. Back then, we were using Oracle but transitioning to Salesforce.com at the company. And so, as I was involved in this project, so called, I became interested in learning more project management formally. So that led me to a few years in project management, but because I continue to have a passion in learning, teaching, ongoing development, change management, which is a portion of project management field, which focuses on the people side of change with transformational initiatives. I started to go into that area and join the change management team. And then as I was managing a sales transformation initiative as a change manager still at Symantec, the VP of Sales, Global Sales Operations, I was in a facilitation workshop, facilitating a change management workshop with leadership. He approached me and asked if I would be interested in joining his team in a business operations capacity. So I was still in the sales operations realm, working as a change manager, and I now have an opportunity to actually do hands-on sales operations work. So from there, it kind of led to helping me go into more leadership roles in sales operations, focused on a lot of things around sales ops, as well as strategic planning and sales conversation coverage model. And due to some changes where Symantec divested Veritas, and I became part of the Veritas team for a few years, I also wanted to experience a startup. Because as you can see, Symantec and Veritas, I stayed there for about 16, 17 years of my career, but every few years I was able to get quite a bit of, sales operations, change management experience. But I've always wondered what it's like to go to a smaller startup company. So I had this opportunity to work with a company called Vidyard, who some of you might be familiar with, is that they also offer free online video marketing. So I was there for a little under a year, and then also moved into more of a local startup type company focused on financial technology of automating the loan mortgage process. So still high tech, but very different, going from a big company to smaller companies. I was still in the sales operations role, but through my experience at Vidyard and DocuTech before I joined CSO Insights, I probably also experienced marketing operations as part of sales ops and revenue operations. So this is where I got exposed more to the marketing side and really understood how the handoff and alignment with marketing and sales is very important, even when you consider process and technology handoffs as well. And I was at a point where I was looking for something that could allow me to have a little bit more flexible time and work from home, and CSO Insights came along. It was a great opportunity because my current role as a research director focused on sales operations and technology allows me to write about our research on those topics based on some of my own personal experiences with sales operations and technology. And so this is a great way to, my continual theme, as you can see, Joel, is kind of the ongoing learning, development, and also sharing that knowledge. And in my current role, I'm able to do that and share our research and also help kind of provide the sales operations perspective based on my own personal experience as well. So it's been an interesting journey. I never imagined I'd be doing this, but here I am, and I'm really enjoying it right now. And I'm very glad to be kind of part of the panel that you're hosting in my current role as research director.
Well, thank you for joining the panel. Indeed, I think we are very, very, very pleased to have you because of your experience, but also you can see sales from the other side, which is from the research side, with a lot of activities from the inside side, let's say.
Yes.
But you can also help us understand a lot about where the discipline is going because the discipline is changing fast, right?
Yes.
Changing so fast and also becoming fascinating. So this is why I would like to talk a little bit more about social CRM kind of engagement and why you think LinkedIn can be a big part of that as a new technology and platform to really help B2B sales and help engage customer conversations, but also build your network. So what do you think about LinkedIn?
Yes. So if I can share a little bit about my personal initial experience with LinkedIn, I will say until a few years ago, I was not using it much. And personally, as some people might, but I think that's changing, I think I saw LinkedIn more as like a online resume platform to share my experiences as well as look for opportunities, right? So looking at it from a personal perspective. But having been at companies like Vidyard, where they're very much about the social media usage and video usage and that personalization aspect, LinkedIn is very much used in a more of an organizational capacity, not just a personal platform for networking, where you can use it for marketing and sales purposes as well. But I think what's important also is to remember when you're using LinkedIn as a social media platform for sales and marketing purposes, as an organization, as an individual, as part of an organization, you also have to remind yourself occasionally, some people use it for the personal network aspect of it. And so when you are reaching out to them, there needs to be the what we call, right, the what's in it for me, or the WIFM, WIIFM for acronym, when you're reaching out. When you are reaching out one-on-one personally, just to say, hey, I've been reading your post and I would really like to connect with others like yourself in my local network as part of my personal network because I want to continue that conversation locally, that's a one-to-one, which is great. But when you are adding more of that sales or marketing usage of LinkedIn, you're trying to establish that one-to-one, but it's kind of a combination of how do you get that person to be a potential lead or prospect within your organizational system and processes, but still have that personal connection relevance. Because I do receive quite a bit of LinkedIn connections that are pure prospecting that I ignore simply because it's not personalized. They haven't even bothered looking at my latest title, and they might be referencing my previous company's title and sending me very general information that is like, I don't care about this, what you offer. So if you haven't done your homework to understand what I would care about, I'm going to ignore your connection request. So I think it's kind of a balance of maintaining that personal connection, even as you're leveraging LinkedIn as a platform to connect from a sales and marketing perspective when you're part of a business.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and in fact, it's important to understand that it's about relationship. So relationship matters. And it's not because it's digital relationship that it's not relationship. Just like in the real world, why would you want to connect and be relationship with someone who does not even show interest in who you are,
right,
in what you do? So somehow it's the same world, yet we live in two worlds, the physical and the digital world, which is great now because we can expand our relationship in the digital world.
right.
We have to do it appropriately, which is really the right way. Because if we don't build relationship in a very appropriate way, people won't respond positively, and you won't expand your relationship. So this is exactly what
Right.
you're saying. Yeah.
And I think the other two pieces is the consumer experience does kind of continue into the business experience, right? The B2B experience. So as an example, many of the younger generation, I'm not an avid user of like Snapchat as an example, but I do use Instagram, Facebook. LinkedIn is very similar. However, it does have that professional aspect. So depending on who you're reaching out to, some may see LinkedIn and be okay with a lot of people following them or connecting with them because they're used to that from the personal use of social media tools like a Snapchat or Instagram, which is great. But there are some of us, like myself, that might be more traditional or a little bit more conservative, where we do distinctly differentiate LinkedIn more as a professional networking platform and not just to post, casual personal commentary. That may not be relevant to the business context. So I think it's a matter of also understanding how the other person might receive it, and that keeping that in mind is not everybody might be receptive to this kind of a reach out right off the bat because they're used to it from their personal consumer experience. There may be others like myself that might be a little bit more reserved and would appreciate a little bit more thought before you reach out. So
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and put the connection request or the relationship building request into context, because context matters, and if you don't
Yes.
understand, and if you don't build the context, then why would you, be responsive to someone you don't even understand the purpose of building that relationship?
Right.
So I think you made a great point here to really explain that. And well, serendipity is at work here because we do have Francesca Galucci joining us. I can see that on the screen. Francesca, are you already here? Here we go. So,
I'm here.
Francesca, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So, as you know, we have Yuri also in our meeting, Yuri Dekiba, talking about the importance of building a relationship. And we were just talking about building relationship in sales, in business in general, but also on LinkedIn. And what we want to do during this meeting, as you know, because we set it up this way, is to really have Yuri's feedback on how to use LinkedIn to initiate relationship in a social CRM kind of context, but also how to initiate relationship the right way, because as you know, Yuri is also helping us for our virtual conference panel discussion, where she will be our guest speaker. But before having this virtual conference panel discussion with our guest speakers, Yuri said, since you started this project, so I have students reaching out to me, and it's very interesting to see actually the differences into their approach. But also because I am a Johns Hopkins alum, I'd like to help, and I like to offer my feedback to help your students also understand better how they can use LinkedIn to build a better relationship. And then I said, this is great, let's do it. So Francesca, along with Corbin Catmull, you are a teaching assistant, a graduate teaching assistant in the first online CRM class that we are offering at Johns Hopkins Career Business School. And as part of your role, you help the students navigating into this process where they have to use Salesforce.com and LinkedIn to initiate relationship, but also Salesforce to manage those relationships for our virtual conference panel discussion, where they also use Salesforce to share what they learn through Chatter from their LinkedIn experience and share that with their teammates and their colleagues in our online CRM class. And Francesca, we did something very important from a pedagogical standpoint with you and Corbin. One of you reached out to Yuri without any personalized invitation connection on purpose, and that was you, Francesca. And
That was me.
Reached out to Yuri with a very personalized invitation, and we thought it would be nice for Yuri to start to kind of tell us a little bit what she thinks about how to do relationship from those two examples that we did on purpose, but also offer some feedback and suggestions about how to use LinkedIn, and not just to start relationship, but also to be there and promote your professional brand there in the digital world, right, Yuri? So the first question I'd like to ask you, Francesca, is because you did that on purpose, why do you think people would send a connection request without any kind of personalization? And do you think this is good?
All right. Well, first, hi, Yuri. Nice to meet
Hello.
you. Thank you for this opportunity. This is great. And I think this is going to be really helpful because I recently graduated, so I'm an alum as well. And I'm finding myself in the same situation with being a TA and post-graduation, a lot of requests coming at me, and some are very detailed and specific, and some are, oh, I remember this person from a class, but there's no context. So I think this was a great opportunity to have a conversation with you, because I'd like to get a little better about how I can approach this from the alumni, to take advantage of this alumni network, but then also how to do that within my own energy industry. So thanks for the opportunity. So I find that, I guess it's easy, right? You see all these people and faces pop up and you're like, oh, I know that person, click and you send. And then you kind of see that happening to you as well. So you kind of, we lose the formality of digital communication. And I think there's that, we're all forming that. So even, I guess it's the equivalent of tween texting, right? Like what's acceptable in certain age groups and what's not, right? And we're still forming those relationships and getting more familiar with that. So I think this is great. And I think it just starts to start a dialogue about where we as a Johns Hopkins community or we as professionals really want to see this work. And you can Google it and find a lot of conversation about it. And I did look a little bit more on LinkedIn once you brought it up. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective. And I was glad to be the bad content. Corbin and I spent some time talking about it last night. Like what could he connect with you on? Like, was it your background? Is it just school?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the nail, easy, right? Which can, if you think about it, also be translated in a not so positive way as lazy. It's
Right.
easy to just hit the button, connect, that's it. I've done my job. It's now on that person's shoulder to take action and respond. But if you put yourself in the other person's shoes and you were on the receiving end for a non-personalized, just hey, I want to connect with you with no context whatsoever, think about, are you going to accept that person or not? Typically, my next step, I don't know who this person is. I don't know why they reached out. I'm going to look at their profile first. Is there anything that's the what's in it for me of why I would want to connect with them and accept their request? Now, if there's not much value for me, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to accept it. However, if for some reason I see something like, hey, you're a Johns Hopkins grad, typically when I'm in a positive mode, then I would send a reply note before I accept and message them to say, hey, thanks for connecting. Can you give me more context why you'd like to connect? I see that you're a Johns Hopkins alumni as well, but help me understand why you want to connect with me. Some people respond, others don't respond. If they don't respond to me, it's like, okay, I don't think it's worth my time and effort, and I don't respond. And what I wanted to share, if you don't mind, Joel and Francesca, is I'd like to share my screen because I also wanted to share with you what I'm seeing as a receiver of Francesca's and Corbin's request. And I want to show you guys two notices. And this is going to be true for a lot of people that are in the corporate world that you might be reaching out to, or even nonprofit, right? Or education. There's a LinkedIn notification as well as email notification you're going to receive based on the email that you registered with your LinkedIn account. So I want to kind of share with you both. Okay, so the first one I want to share, let me see here. Let me get to the right page. Let me see. I'm going to share this one. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me see if that works. Hold on just a second. I think it's coming up.
Yes.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is, I just went to my standard, this is my profile view. If I click on myself, this is what I see. And what you'll notice is there's a alert here, my network. So if I see an alert, just like with any social media, alerts kind of get you interested, then I would go here. Then I see, hey, Francesca asked to connect. Corbin asked to connect. Now what I see here in both of these is I just see your request to connect, and I can choose to ignore or accept. Typically, what I end up doing is clicking on the person's profile because there's no message here, and I'll differentiate this versus InMail because Corbin also sent me an InMail message, okay? This is the LinkedIn, what it looks like. Now I also have a couple of email ones that I showed up, so let me show you with this. All right, so this is Francesca's email that I get. Right, it just kind of looks like this. I just says, I'd like to join your network, generic, your name, whatever is your headline title, and then I can go here to view the profile or accept. Now Corbin's is the same thing. I see this here, okay? However, because Corbin used the LinkedIn's InMail functionality to connect with me, I received a separate email from him. And so to me, if I'm looking at my inbox, I'm like, well, he wanted to connect with me. Now I'm getting an email message. And this actually has more of that personalized approach that we talked about earlier. You know, he mentions the Johns Hopkins connection. He also mentions he has experience working as business ops, CRM strategy, stuff that I care about that is in my experience. Obviously, this sentence, similar to the theme of your recent article, tells me he read one of my articles, which gets my attention to like, oh, this guy actually did some homework. And he kind of talks about the virtual conference panel discussion. So this has a lot of relevance to me. If you think about it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 things that he's identified, probably through looking through my profile, that catches my attention. Compared to if I were just to look at this where he didn't have too much, or even Francesca's, right? It's more like, well, I need to do my homework. Like, whereas the in-mail message that you saw earlier, he's helping me understand why he wants to connect. So the what's in it for me is great. Personally, I love to teach, I love to coach, and I love to mentor. So I would love to connect with Corbin because maybe there's something I can offer. There is also something he can offer in that he's actually part of the team that is working on the virtual conference panel discussion, which I'm working with you all on. So there is that connection point. So I just wanted to call that out. Now the difference, I'm sure I'm not the LinkedIn expert per se, but my understanding personally is in-mail is a functionality you receive if you're on the premium version of LinkedIn, I believe. And there's only a limited number of this in-mail messaging you can use with your subscription. So don't use it too much. Use it carefully, you know, to have this message. So I want to kind of show all of you how that works. So when you go to here, let's say
to accept their connections request, right? Both of them, right?
yes, I will definitely accept it. Let's just take this person because he's a second network connection, so I'm not connected, just to kind of see. So what happens is if I search and I click, and let's say I want to connect, I can just push the easy step of connect, which is what Francesca talked about earlier. All this does is send a request, right? There's a couple of options I want to go to. Okay, one is follow. It's buried here in the more. If you feel you don't have much content to request a direct connection, but you'd like to follow this person and maybe eventually connect with them when you feel more like you have substance for your connection request, always follow. That's similar to any other social media. You can always follow people and you'll still get what they post, what they're doing, what they're saying into your feed. Now, my tactic is if it's like a well-known industry expert, I don't know them personally, they don't know me yet, I follow that person, I see their feed, then I start putting commentary that is thought out in their posts so they can start recognizing me. Once I feel they've liked my commentary or whatnot on their post and I'm ready to connect, then I do a connect request. So there's different ways you can do that. If you jump right to connect, but you may not have as much value to offer to the person you're connecting with, this is a very great way to build that kind of value add and the connection stronger. Now, if I were to connect, I'm not going to do this, but you can also do message, which is typically, if I click on this, by the way, is the in-mail. When this pops up, you're using up your in-mail messaging capability. And a lot of people who are on Sales Navigator, which is what companies invest in for professional prospecting and reach out, they use that kind of message. So just keep in mind, if I receive that kind of a message, I automatically think, oh, they're prospecting, which, to be honest, my gates come up, my filters come up. Do I really want to engage with this person because they're trying to prospect with me? The other way is this, and hopefully I'm not going to end up connecting with this person too much, but that's okay. I can push connect. You'll see this function called add a note. This is a free version. This allows you to add a very simple 300-word note that says, hi, Abigail, my name is Yuri. I love to connect for these reasons. Or I saw that you posted on this and you also know my colleague, X. I'd love to connect and add you to my network. You can add a 300-word personalized message here without using up your in-mail. And this is what really I pay attention to. People who do this, and some of your students, Joel, in your classroom actually use this.
Yes.
Because when you do this, I'm not going to do this, but you actually get a message. Okay, so let me show an example. All right. So when Meredith from your class reached out, she obviously used that capability.
Mhm.
And she specified, hi, I'm the current MS marketing student in JHU. Right away, I'm like, great. I'm doing a virtual panel with you. I love to connect. My professor Joel introduced, nice to know you. And I responded back and I accepted.
Mhm.
So even before I accept, if I see this message, it gives me kind of more of that relevance of why would I want to connect with that person. So that's the, if you remember what I showed you, click on the message first, then that'll take you to InMail. But if you click and connect, that pop-up allows you to do a 300-word introductory message that makes it more personal. So I normally like to use that unless the other person already knows me and I just haven't connected yet. But if I'm like a secondary person or it's new or even an older sales leader that doesn't remember me, I like to create that personalized message in 300 words. Okay?
Yuri, I think that's a great distinction because I didn't realize the difference between using the comment, adding the note in the messaging, although people have reached out to me that way. And I too really ignore a lot of those in messages because they're sales, they're recruiters.
Right.
Yes.
All
And you
hitting
can even see, even in my messaging page here, Corbin's InMail already starts with InMail. That automatically triggers in me, ooh, are they prospecting me, right? So,
Yeah.
I have used InMail by accident in LinkedIn to connect with a sales leader I knew previously. And I think, he knows me, so thank goodness. But if he didn't, he'd probably be like, are you reaching out? So this is that message that he sent.
Right.
And it does come across as InMail message, but this is one where it obviously, because it's an InMail function, it automatically has responses like interested, maybe later, no thanks. I'm just going to personalize it, say, thanks for reaching out, Corbin, happy to connect, and then I'll accept it. My experience is InMail does, like you said, Francesca, get by some people automatically associated prospecting.
Right.
They may ignore this message as well. But if you personalize that with a 300-word limited text version, that's a little different. So I pay more attention to those.
Great.
Let's see, Abigail.
I would have one question about, so you mentioned that he read your article and we read it together last night and we both connected on that. So the following, so if you haven't followed, at what point is it appropriate to jump in and say, is it better to do it in the comments and comment on the article about something that speaks to you, or go right in? So that's always felt a little sticky to me. What's the best way to go about doing that? Or
Yeah.
to that a little bit.
So as an example, I wanted to share with you this screen, Joel. Wait a second. I think I just missed it, but hold on just a second. There was a screen that I was on where, let me just go back to where I was because I lost the one. So when Joel posted the virtual
Conference panel discussion.
Yes, conference post, I actually responded back. So just bear with me just a second because I want to show you guys what I did. And that's typically the trick that I use. So if I go to my own activity section, I can just browse all my activities. So bear with me here because I'm just going through this just to kind of show you what I did. Obviously, here we go. Okay. All right. So Joel posted this. And obviously, because he used the @Yuri Dekiba, it notifies me, hey, he wrote something about this panel that I'm part of. So I looked at it right away. And when I saw this, as you can see, I used @JoelBond, right? And looked for him, looking forward. Now, this is the trick I was mentioning, Francesca, that I do is before a connection request, I follow somebody. Then I want to see what they're doing. I do want to connect, but I want the connection to be relevant for them as well, not just me. So it's not a selfish connection request. I want them to get value out of the connection. In my case, I'm able to, I think, because I have something to offer as a research director. But a lot of times when you're starting out on LinkedIn and you might be, looking to expand your network or learn, that's still okay as well to include in your personalized connect message. I just graduated, with an MBA from Johns Hopkins. I am in this field. I love what you're posting. I'd like to learn more, and therefore I'm requesting a connect. that makes it relevant, especially if the person like myself likes to help others, right? If they don't, they might ignore it, and that's okay. So you can always follow them. Here, by doing the add at Joel, right? So for instance, if I were to say at, it comes up and I say Joel, that's going to directly connect a message to him. So even if it's someone I'm following, let's say I was just following Joel and I was not connected to him, and I click the at, he's going to get a notice in his LinkedIn. And some of the people that I have just followed, not connected per se, actually click like or click reply. If you start seeing them doing that enough, I think it's okay for you to consider, hey, maybe I can connect with them because they've seen that I've added some commentary that they feel they agree with or is relevant. So that's personally, it's up to all of you, but personally, that's my gauge to determine, are they interested enough in seeing my comments that maybe I can reach out to them and connect and they'll accept it. So I kind of gauge that. When might that be? So that's just a trick that I use. So.
Yuri, that's great. That was really helpful and very succinct, and I definitely appreciate that. What I liked about your article with changing industries and interning, at a certain point, so you have a lot to offer in this field, but hearing your perspective on starting over, and I really appreciate that. And I will certainly comment on that article, maybe provide some of my own experience and how I'm doing it right now.
Thank you.
Well. Corbin, I really enjoyed talking about that last night. It was a great transition for this as a context in the classroom, but also personally.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason I posted it. Now, one thing I'd like to distinguish there, right, is LinkedIn gives you the capability to write your own articles, which is great for those of us who don't have a platform to post your blogs like I do currently in my role, right? I currently now, so what I have done, even though people go here and they look at the articles and comment, which is great, one of the things I learned from one of the social media companies that help you kind of make over your profile on LinkedIn is Vengresso. So I was fortunate enough to go through a session with them, and they taught me how to add thumbnails that take you to my current blog. So if I were to click on here, let's say, and I'm going to click it on a new tab, what this does is it takes you to, because I've added it, to actually, let me see where it does take me. Not sure if it's taking me there.
Training from Vengresso, Mario, Kurt,
I actually got it from the session I sat in on was from Mario.
Oh, Mario,
so,
he's
yes.
a good friend. He's great. He has a lot of energy.
But to your point, I wanted to point out, Francesca, because a lot of experts also, if they don't have a formal blog platform like CSO Insights offers for myself in my role as an analyst, they write articles, which I think is a great way to get yourself known as an expert and build your expertise. But if you don't, and you'd rather point people to your company's organization's blog, this is a great way to do that so that people can see it's not just because if you read my article, this is a little outdated now. It's like 2 years old. So, you know, but I posted it because I felt there were others, you know, personally that maybe I could share my learnings from and experience from that might be going through similar career kind of next step, you know, which road do I take moment. But here, because I've made over my profile to fit more my role as a research director and trying to establish myself as a subject matter expert, I've changed it significantly from my previous role. In my previous role, I didn't really have to do this as much, but now it's a very different look and feel than when I was an actual sales operations practitioner compared to now being a research director. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so this is great. So I was curious if you were connected with Abigail. So can we just check? So
sure.
It's Nizian Kiwix. So Nizian.
Right here?
So, yes, not yet. So
okay.
She, just like other students, like we have many other students, she posted also about the VCPD, and I was curious to see if you already connected. Not yet, so maybe you can connect with her, and actually going to be connected with all the students after this after this presentation. This is also very helpful for them to understand how they can connect
sure.
with subject matter experts like you, and why would you accept to be connected with them? That was very, very interesting.
Yep.
Other things Yuri, you would like to add on, you know, how to leverage LinkedIn for your professional digital brand. Also, it's not just a digital brand, it's not just a professional brand.
Yes. So the other thing, which I'm sure your team has been working on, is the headline that I talked about here. Because this is the thing, as you saw in the network connection, that you see everywhere. It follows you everywhere, basically, right? So if I were to click on her, like right here, right? Meredith's request has that headline here. If this is also a great way to kind of highlight why people might want to connect with you. So this is an important area to focus more attention on. This doesn't pull from your current role. Now, if you don't have this filled in, I believe it automatically pulls from your current title. The other thing is photos. You think it's very natural, but one of the students I did receive a connect request from had no profile photo. And that is a big no-no, because automatically on the receiving end, I am thinking, this person hasn't really thought about their profile on LinkedIn. You know, how serious are they to connect with me?
You know, Yuri, I was a big offender of that up until I graduated in May, and I took Joelle's class spring 1, so of 2019, and it was definitely noted. Someone who teaches so well this market and how this all works. So it took some time, but I did notice a very big increase in
and
just taking seriously when I did reach out, and connections, and even the type of cruise, and I did a big update of it. So I would really echo that to all the students that are going to watch this video, that taking the time to upload a professional picture as well is worth the money to get a snapshot.
So that's the other thing, is a professional piece, right, Joel? So.
Yeah, professional. And you are the brand. You are the brand. This is a great way to show that you are the brand.
Right. So for those of us who are more the younger generation than I am, and are used to all of these selfie pictures from your personal use of social media platforms, my recommendation, and you can take it, as a grain of salt, is professional photo is key. You don't have to spend so much money on it, but even if it's just a nice headshot with a nice background, don't crop a family photo of you leaning into somebody and you still see somebody's shoulder. Or it is LinkedIn, unlike other personal social platforms, are more professional. So always remember that. And if your photo appears a little too provocative or inappropriate, that's also not too professional. So keep that in mind. Even though you can reach out and personalize your engagement on a LinkedIn platform, my recommendation is it is still a business platform. So it has to be relevant. And like you guys were saying, photos, I mean, it's all about first impressions, whether we like it or not. And photos kind of help with that. That makes it more personal as well. And when you don't have a photo and it's just a black and white, standard kind of icon of a person, it's just like, well, why would I want to connect with you? So.
Yeah, it shows that the effort and the dedication that you're making. But with that, I'm going to have to jump and get back to work. And I look forward to the conference and hearing some more of your insights. And we'll definitely share this with the group. We're going to do a virtual happy hour with the class.
Great.
And encourage some of this virtual meeting. And I think this is a really good example of how a casual conversation can go. So I'll be sure to share some of this as well.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon, Francesca. Okay, Yuri. So, this was very interesting and also very important. Maybe just one last question. Did you make some great connections on LinkedIn that kind of really changed something for you, or made a big difference for you in your career or in your role? I mean, impacted what you are doing. Do you have one example or something like that?
Yeah, I can share maybe a handful. One, to be honest, is you reaching out, Joel, which was great. Because when I first got your outreach, and I had also seen, because LinkedIn also does a good job of showing you if you have similar connections, right? So that also helps. And I saw that you were connected to other people that I would love to connect more closely with, who are kind of industry experts. But also, quite frankly, the fact that you're teaching at Johns Hopkins, which is one of my, where I graduated from for graduate school, it already had that connection. And I was like, great, you're teaching a class that in a topic that I really care about and passionate about. So that has led to having this opportunity to converse with you and your students, participating in your virtual panel. So that was a great example, I think, of you reaching out, and I really appreciate that. Another example is, let's see. So when I was a sales operations practitioner, I had worked with a company called Serious Decisions, who also does a lot of research on marketing, enablement, sales operations. And because I was a client of one of my contacts there, Dana Therian, who is now a practice lead there, I had connected with him. And what was very interesting is, the reason why I bring this out as an example is, he is a well-known subject matter expert in sales operations, and he's now my peer in a way, in that I'm doing analysis on that as well. And we're also semi-competitors in an extent, but we're also friends first. And so when I connected with him, I started seeing a lot of his feeds, and he does a lot of presentations in different events, and kind of that has really been helpful for me. One, because it's great to see what my peers and colleagues are doing, and somebody that I really respect. Two, it also, in my current role, what's also important is because I'm no longer doing the actual sales operations job, to be an effective research director and analyst, I still have to leverage my network and connections to really understand what are the challenges and top of mind issues that sales leaders and sales operations leaders care about. Because I'm no longer doing that every day, I see my network on LinkedIn as a way for me to keep top of mind issues as I look at the research that we're doing, so that what we produce continues to be relevant. And I'm not talking about something 5 years ago, right? And so by connecting with people like Dana, who is my peer in the sales ops analyst world, it gives me the ability to see all the dialogue going. And it allows me to also maybe follow other companies or other organizations or others and expand my network further. So for me, in my current role, the LinkedIn network is a great way for me to keep current with the relevant issues. And so that's, I guess, another example of that.
Yeah, this is a great example. Yes, staying current about your field, in your field, by following, what others are talking about, so you're aware of what others are talking about. And if they are talking about this, it might be important. So
yes.
Great. Well, Yuri, thank you so much for your time, and also for sharing these recommendations and very kind feedback with our students. It's very helpful. You already connected with them somehow, because you're on ChatGPT. But I hope you're going to be more digitally connected with them, and that they will reach out to you with some personalized connection requests, so you can really be connected with them and you can help each other more.
Sure. And what I'm going to do after this call, Joel, is I'm going to send a connection request to Abigail per your request. So you and your students can see what that looks like and what that feels like when you receive that personalized message.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
All right.
And I'll see you soon, and I'll see you on LinkedIn.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.